Well, you wanted a big win for the program and you wanted a big win for Neal Brown. You got it, Mountaineer fans. The West Virginia Mountaineers renew the Black Diamond rivalry with a 27-21 victory over Virginia Tech. Mountaineer faithful get to rock and sing country roads together inside Milan Puskar Stadium. So a big night, big day for the Mountaineer faithful, to say the very least. And Neal Brown gets that staple victory. This is our WVU post-game show here on Pittsburgh Sports Live. I'm your host, Mike Asti, and I am going to be joined by Jared Serre, who is a contributor to WVSports.com. Now, Jared, this team gets a big victory. This is now, I said coming into this game, this was a much needed win for Neal Brown. Biggest game of the Neal Brown era, ends up being a victory for West Virginia. Before we get into everything that went on in this game, and there's a lot to unpack in this game because West Virginia almost let this victory get away from them towards the end, and this could have been an entirely different conversation. That Jarret Doege interception at the end certainly could have made it a rough day on campus for him if they would have lost. But what led West Virginia to this win? What was the atmosphere being there with the players, the coaches? You were able to talk to some of them before we fired up this post-game show. And how big of a deal is this victory, renewing this rivalry to this program now?
Well, this was a huge win without question. I don't think there's a single person who would disagree with that. Yeah. And not even from a rivalry standpoint. Just you start the season 1-1, tough loss to a Maryland team. You needed to rebound in this game against a top opponent if you are West Virginia, and they did just that. Obviously there is somewhat of a history between the two programs, kind of been dormant the past couple of years, but also with Maryland being a rival, it would have been really tough for Neal Brown to lose both of those games. He comes out with the win today against Virginia Tech. Atmosphere was electric. I've only really covered WVU for the past 3 years, but this is by far the most electric atmosphere I've seen in person at any time in seeing college sports. It was a really big win. It was a statement win for Neal Brown. He really needed this one. And, I don't think there's anybody other than Virginia Tech that's upset that he got it.
He got a big win, to say the very, very least. And I do think after starting the year with some hype and with some promise after winning a bowl game a year ago, thinking maybe, okay, the climb is happening. You're trusting the climb. Year one, you knew the cupboard was bare. This is progressing somewhere. After the loss to Maryland, the way they lost with Jarret Doege looking like he had regressed, some interceptions, some mistakes, they didn't look good all the way throughout. The defense kind of getting exposed as well by a quarterback. It looked rough. And then beating LIU the way they did, 66-0, no one can be that excited about it because you're supposed to do that to those programs. Turn around here to get a top 15 victory is certainly a big deal. So not only are you renewing a rivalry, but you get a big win over a ranked opponent, only the second time for Neal Brown, a top 15 team in Virginia Tech that already picked up a ranked win to start their year over North Carolina. Big all the way around. And it even feels like a bigger deal rivalry-wise, even though these players certainly, honestly, it was kind of funny for me watching, but these players, these students, they weren't even alive when Michael Vick was leading the Hokies to the national title game. But yet there's still more of a bad blood and contingent of this rivalry than even, say, Maryland around these players. So it seems like they get it. Watching from a distance, that stadium absolutely looked rocking, and West Virginia got the win again, 27-21 here. Our WVU postgame show on PSL. Jared Serre joining me here, WVU writer with WVSports.com. Now, Jared, what was going to allow this game to go away from them? Because this team almost lost this game. Virginia Tech almost came back and stole this game. The Mountaineers had control early with a couple big plays, special teams yardage, big returns, big run from Letty Brown to open up the game, second play from scrimmage, pass play. It looked all West Virginia, 24-7 at one point. This could have been a conversation of a catastrophic loss that could have ruined the whole Neal Brown era if they would have let Virginia Tech come back and win this. What did Virginia Tech do to get back in it and almost steal the win? Or was it more of something that West Virginia didn't do and they just all of a sudden played worse to almost have this game be completely ruined and go the other way?
Yeah, I would definitely lean toward the second one. They looked really sharp, at least that first half. Something that really stuck out to me was At one point in the third quarter, Braxton Burmeister, Virginia Tech's quarterback, had only thrown for 80-something yards. He really didn't run for a whole lot. But in the third quarter, that really started to change. I don't want to say momentum fully changed, but Virginia Tech kind of woke up in that third quarter is kind of how I saw it. And then heading into that fourth quarter, the final few minutes, there was a lot of energy in the stadium. Without question, both teams fed off of that. Right. Neal spoke earlier after the game about the late turnover that Jarret Doege threw.
I was going to ask that soon. Yeah.
Yeah. They wanted to go with something quick. Jarret kind of lofted the pass, which led to the interception, but Virginia Tech played it well. So I would say that this one was on West Virginia in the sense that they just stopped executing as efficiently as they had been. And it shouldn't come as a surprise. Right. Through the first 2 weeks, Neal Brown and the coaches have all kind of been preaching, hey, we've struggled with the fundamentals. They looked sharp in the first quarter, second quarter, but those fundamental concerns still linger a little bit.
They did linger. And despite this being a very, very big win, again, staple win for Neal Brown, staple win for this program, the Neal Brown era, certainly even in a while, maybe the biggest home win for this program's had in a while. And you get a trophy out of it. You renew a rivalry. You hadn't beat Virginia Tech at home since 2003, as crazy as that sounds. That's as big of a deal this is. You got to also look at it logically. Everything you're saying is very, very true. They also didn't look great at times, and there's still weaknesses and issues exposed from this game. Certainly wasn't very, very pretty, and there's still reason to be concerned about the rest of the season. Certainly still vulnerable against many other teams throughout the rest of the season as they will eventually get into conference play here. Jared Serre, a WVU sports writer here with WVSports.com, joining me on the WVU postgame show after West Virginia's 27-21 Black Diamond Trophy victory over Virginia Tech at home. They might still be singing Country Roads at that stadium, quite frankly. Now, you mentioned Jarret Doege's interception. He really got let off the hook. I even tweeted he's the luckiest man in America right now, because if they lost that game and Virginia Tech was driving, the entire conversation among the fan base right now, and it still might be there, is you got to bench Jarret Doege. He can't be the starter anymore. You got to go to Green. We saw sprinkles again of him. Doege's been the experienced guy. That's why he's been starting. But did you hear anything from either him or Brown about that play call even? Because it also seemed kind of an odd play call. The post-game coverage on Fox after the game was much more even about what were they doing even calling the play. It kind of seemed risky in general. Any questions to Brown about the play call decision? And after that, what did you see from Doege as an individual? Are you any more or less confident in Doege moving forward after this game despite the win? Because there was good, there was bad, and there was ugly in this one.
So going back to that play call, all Coach Brown really had mentioned was that they wanted to go with something quick. Okay. They wanted to get the ball moving, and that, it should have been quick. Doege should have, thrown it. I think Brown said toward the ground, meaning, quick, snap it in there. He lofted it. He mentioned that Virginia Tech just played the ball really well. And obviously they came up with the interception. Now during the game, as you mentioned, we did see a lot of Garrett Green. He sprinkled in throughout, mostly used in the run plays. Sure. I think he had one pass play that really didn't turn into anything, but I think it worked for West Virginia. I think it might give fans the wrong idea. Right now, I would say I'm fairly confident that Mountaineers are still going to stick with Jarret Doege moving forward. If anything, Neal would address that more on Tuesday for his weekly media. But I think including Garrett Green in, a handful of plays and his agility, his ability to move around in the pocket and out of the pocket, it was a really needed extra wrinkle to this Mountaineer offense to come out and pull out this win.
Garrett Green absolutely looks like he serves a role, to say the least, even towards the end there on some short yardage conversion, being able to sprinkle him out and have those run plays. He has the running ability for sure, and he can catch a defense off guard in a way. That's what we saw in this game. He kind of caught Virginia Tech off guard a little bit. But Again, there's still concerns if he can do it as a thrower. If you put him in there as a starter and he's doing it running exclusively, that's going to be a major issue because defenses could easily scheme against that. He is inexperienced. I wouldn't imagine Jarret Doege's bench by any means either. Certainly going into Oklahoma, where you want to have experience there. However, the schedule is going to get tougher. Oklahoma's not looked great, but they're still winning. They're getting these W's. West Virginia just cannot beat Oklahoma since coming into the Big 12. That obviously would be a ridiculously tremendous victory for the program and Neal Brown. That would be the new biggest win if they could do that. But there were certainly issues in this game, still some bad mistakes by Jarret Doege. Jared Serre joining me here in West Virginia does have Oklahoma coming up, so I do want to focus in on that. Obviously, they're going to celebrate this win over Virginia Tech. It was not pretty. They hung on. They got a win. Honestly, it's like the history of the rivalry. None of those wins for either program have always been pretty, but somebody gets the W. They got the trophy this time. Jarret Doege needs to be better. The defense really stepped up. The defense, to me, collectively, is the MVP of this game. Certainly the line really, really stepped up with some big stops at the end. Didn't see that certainly as much against Maryland. But now moving on, because they're going to move on. And Neal Brown, I'm sure, is going to tell them probably tomorrow, even as quickly, send a text. We got to move on now. They had a big game against Oklahoma. What do you expect in that game against Oklahoma? And what do the Mountaineers need to do to have a chance against the Sooners? Doesn't matter how good or bad Oklahoma is in people's eyes. West Virginia just can't beat Oklahoma. And they're certainly still a top 10 team and a team that many are figuring to beat West Virginia. I'm imagining heavy point favorites entering that game. What do the Mountaineers need to do to try to get another big win and keep this moving?
Yeah, I really don't know, to be entirely honest. I haven't
I like honesty. I like honesty.
Well, coming into this game today was very much a show me game.
Right.
You have the poor showing against Maryland, terrific showing against Long Island. Now I think we have a better understanding of where West Virginia is at, obviously. Sure. But, there are a couple of reasons I don't really know what to expect from next week's Oklahoma game. One being they didn't play last year. If you recall correctly, right. COVID, I believe, postponed it one time and then canceled it outright.
Yeah, I actually literally recorded a pregame show that ended up being that's in the garbage can somewhere. Yes, they didn't play the game. Right.
So, this will be West Virginia's first game action against guys like Spencer Rattler, who is Oklahoma's former 5-star quarterback. I really don't know how the game will play out. Obviously, we've got the whole week. We're going to talk with Neal and offensive coordinator Jared Parker and defense coordinator Jordan Leslie on Tuesday. Right. But I think in that game, they need to show a lot of fight that like they did today, but they need to be more well-rounded. They need to shore up those minor miscues. The penalties are a big one. Really, since Neal Brown came here, penalties have always been an issue. Yeah. The dumb penalties, you gotta shore those up if you really want to hope to beat Oklahoma next week. I also haven't really watched much of Oklahoma. I'll probably get into some more of that tomorrow and Monday. Right. But Oklahoma is always a team to be worried about. They're Oklahoma. They're, consistently ranked in the top 10 every year.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I mean, people are down on, this is lesser than Oklahoma normally. And they did skid by a weak Nebraska team 23-16 today while you were covering West Virginia's win over Virginia Tech. But it's still Oklahoma. I mean, this is still a top 10 Oklahoma team. They're still the class of the conference. I'm sure Neal Brown and West Virginia are not going to be thinking that way about, this is less than Oklahoma. Well, they're still very, very good, and less than what they were 2 years ago is still the best of the conference. And you did mention that penalties certainly, arguably, in addition to Jarret Doege getting a little worse and the offense not picking it up as much in the second half, if West Virginia would have lost to Tech, penalties could have been another major reason. Those penalties were all over the place in that third and fourth quarter and really were allowing Virginia Tech to keep coming back in the game. As I mentioned, Oklahoma barely skidding by Nebraska, so maybe West Virginia can watch that film. That's not a great Nebraska team, and Oklahoma had some problems there. Oklahoma hanging 40, hanging 76 against weak opponents. Their first major conference team, they only put up 23. That's not normally an Oklahoma offensive output. Even when they've lost and have been upset in recent years, they still usually score. So that's the only sign it could point to that it is a little different than normal. If maybe ever you're going to get them, this could be the year. Jared, I definitely appreciate the time for sure. I'll let you get home and get out of the sea of humanity, although maybe you actually were able to beat the traffic by doing this show and covering the game, since I believe now probably the fans are out of there. I don't know where they went to. Good luck. Hopefully you can get out of there and drive safely and not have any roads closed and it get too crazy down there.
Yeah, it's pretty empty. Luckily it was a noon game, so there shouldn't be any fires anywhere. No burnt couches. No burnt couches this afternoon in Morgantown. But thanks for having me, Mike. Appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely. And if people remember historically, those Virginia Tech wins back to 2003, that kind of set the trend of burning couches on. So it's been a while. So yeah, that would be the only thing that would make West Virginia not want to play this rivalry, is if that's going to elicit the couch burning. So hopefully West Virginia fans can celebrate and not destroy any property and make it too much of a hassle for people who live there, but potentially just a dream that we may have. Jared, I definitely appreciate the time, man. We'll have you back on. So have a good night, man.
Yeah, you too.
All right. Jared Serre of WVSports.com joining me. West Virginia's 27-21 win. Not only is it the biggest win in a while for the program, certainly the biggest home win in a while for the program, but by far undisputed the biggest win for Neal Brown since being at WVU. Biggest win in the Neal Brown era. By far, Kansas State does not even sniff this. This is a renewal of a rivalry. This is a home game. This is beating a top 15 ranked opponent with already a big win on their schedule. And yes, the Mountaineers lost to Maryland, as Maryland was able to crawl out of a game against Illinois, but didn't look that great just last night. Maryland maybe was exposed in that game. I don't think Maryland's as great as some of their fans believe they are. I think they're an average team. They got lucky with the matchup there. West Virginia's secondary couldn't handle Tua. West Virginia made some mistakes. Maybe Mountaineer fans are now looking and saying, oh, that should have been a win. Look at where the season could be now. But honestly, and I said this entering the game, Neal Brown gets this win over Virginia Tech. It will kind of forgive Maryland a little bit. That rivalry is not nearly what this one is against Virginia Tech. It's big. We'll see now what happens in Blacksburg next season, but at least you got one leg up and now a big ranked win for Neal Brown again. That was necessary. That wouldn't even have been the case against Maryland. But Oklahoma is coming up. The rest of the Big 12 schedule is coming up. The schedule will not get easier. And a lot happened in this game, despite how big of a deal it was. And everyone's celebrating, singing Country Roads, as Jared and I talked about, hopefully not burning some couches. Big win. You deserve to celebrate, Mountaineer fans. But a lot to still be concerned about for this team. A lot to still be concerned about. Lady Brown finally got going. Great. Thumbs up. Jarret Doege, better, still made some mistakes. Certainly wasn't perfect. A real bad mistake at the end. Didn't throw that ball where it should have been, the way it should have been thrown. That's thumbs down. The defense really stepped up, certainly towards the end. Big goal line stands, big third down stands at the end during the Virginia Tech drives. This defense, MVP of this game, just collectively, certainly the defensive line. It looked like Darius Stills was out there with the way Dante was playing. So defense, 2 thumbs up. Special teams, punter, 2 thumbs up again, 2 thumbs up. Boomstick out there for Tyler Shumpert. Great job by him. Again, Winston Wright with those returns. Field position was big for West Virginia in this game. A thumbs up there. But again, there are some issues. These receivers also help Doege out. No, Green's not going to be the starter, but there's still reason to maybe worry about Doege moving forward. The Mountaineers, though, they can celebrate and sing Country Roads all they want on this night, because on this night, it was a great night to be a Mountaineer wherever you may be. The West Virginia Mountaineers pick up a 27-21 win over Virginia Tech, winning the Black Diamond Trophy and claiming checkmark 1 in the renewal